Hello friends. Today we are going to discuss about Multiple Disabilities Assessment 2024. I am Dr. Suresh Bharadmat, Professor of Psychiatry, working at National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, Bangalore. In this video, I'll be discussing about Multiple Disabilities Assessment, which was notified on 14th March 2024. How to do Multiple Disabilities Assessment, when to do, what are the positive and negative aspects of this Gazette notification will be discussed in this video. As you know, on 27 December 2016, Right to Persons with Disability Act was passed in the Parliament. Later the rules, and now the second edition of the Disability Assessment Guidelines have been notified. This was notified on 14th March 2024. Unfortunately, there is an error in the Gazette notification. The top it mentions 14th March and the bottom it mentions 12th March. There are certain errors have creeped into this Gazette notification. But however, let's discuss how to do multiple disabilities assessment. If you look at the Right to Persons with Disability Act 2016, the last page is the schedule. Here in the schedule, they have defined what is multiple disabilities. It says more than one of the above specified disabilities. Here, there are 21 different disabilities have been notified, including deaf blindness, which means a condition which a person may have combination of hearing, visual impairments, causing severe communication, development, and education problems. That means out of 21, the combination of any of these disabilities will be considered as multiple disabilities if you interpret the legislation RPWD Act. However, if you look at the Gazette notification, which was done on 14th March 2024, it says multiple disabilities means a combination of two or more disabilities mentioned below. Unfortunately, there are only 7 disabilities domains have been given. Some of the disabilities have been combined under 7 of these disabilities. Locomotor disability domain contains orthopedics, cardiac, respiratory, burn injuries, and acid attack exposure victims. That means under the locomotor, various have been clubbed: visual impairment, hearing impairment, disability associated with blood related disorders. Developmental disorders include global developmental delay, intellectual disability, specific learning disability, autism spectrum disorders. Sixth one is mental illness, and seventh is chronic neurological disorder. That means combination of these 7 can only be considered as multiple disability. This is as per the Gazette notification. That means there is a discrepancy between the RPWD Act and the Gazette notification. Now let's move into the Gazette notification 30.2, that is assessment of multiple disability guideline. This guideline, which has been notified under this Gazette notification, clearly says the individual disability shall be used for assessment of each of the specific disability of a person having disability in the first instance. That means if a person has difficulty in hearing, difficulty in speaking, and also he may have locomotor disability and mental disability in the form of depression. Each of these disability will be evaluated independently by the respective specialization. And finally, the degree of disability of the individual disorder will be given. And finally, the calculation is done. Based on the score received from each disability, they will be graded from severity to the least severity. That means you will be arranging them in a descending order. Only those disability who are scoring more than 25% will be considered for assessment of the final composite disability score. That means if the patient has 3 disabilities, one of them is 5%, another is 30%, and the other one is 40%. Only the 30 and 40% will be used. This 5% will not be used for composite calculation. That is what it clearly means. Any person having disability more than 25% in any of the domain will be used for calculation. If disability due to particular disability is given in a range, for example, mental illness, for example, autism spectrum disorder, the disabilities are given as mild, moderate, severe, and the scores are given in the range. For example, with regard to mental illness, the scale used is IDEAS, that is Indian Disability Evaluation Assessment Scale. Here it says moderate if the score is between 40 to 70%. How to take the individual score from them? They have suggested a median, that is 55% will be used. Similarly, if the patient score severe on mental illness and the range is between 71 to 99%, again the median 85% will be used for the scoring of that specific one disability. Now let's look into the formula. The formula used for assessment of multiple disabilities is this one. X is the composite total percentage of the multiple disability. If there are two disabilities, disability A and disability B, invariably the disability A should be the higher percentage than the B disability. That means if you look at the formula, A plus B into 100 minus A divided by 100. This is the Gazette notification of 2024. If you compare with the previous notification, the denominator was 90. In the current notification, it is 100. If it was 90, many patients would have got benefited. By considering 100, we are going to decrease the percentage severity by increasing the denominator here. To understand clearly the formula when you are going to apply for multiple disabilities, imagine if there are two disabilities named as A and B. The composite score for total disability used is X, A plus B 100 minus A divided by 100. The score A must be bigger than the score B. That you need to understand here. Let's understand the further how the certificate is given. Since there are two different disabilities, it may be mental illness and locomotor disability. Who are the specialists involved? In this regard, this Gazette notification talks about a special standing medical board. What is the standing medical board? In all government institutions certifying multiple disability should have a standing medical board which will be convened periodically depending upon the number of multiple disabilities are assessed. That means invariably there will be a chairperson and there are four specialists depending upon four different disabilities. Then all the four specialists have to be there in this standing medical board. Let's read what the Gazette notification says. Specialists required for assessing the individual disability as per the requirement of respective guidelines for locomotor, visual, hearing, disability associated with blood related disorders, developmental disorders, mental illness, and chronic neurological disorders. That means any of these seven domains practitioners have to be there, and then if they are not available, private practitioners can be hired. That is the beauty of this Gazette notification. Now let's take an example how to do the multiple disability assessment. Let's first understand if there are two disabilities. One is hearing disability, which is 40%, and visual disability, 30%. Since both of them are above 25%, that means both the disability, that is hearing, and visual impairment will be used for calculating the composite total disability score. Now we have to place them in a descending order. A is 40%, B is 30%. Now we will be applying this formula. A, since being the highest, invariably 40 plus B being the lowest 30, 30 into 90 minus 40 divided by 100. If you look at this, 40 plus 30 into 90 minus 40 divided by 100, that the calculation will be 30 into 50 divided by 100. Finally, 1500 divided by 100. And so, if we calculate, it will be 15. 40 plus 15 will be the 55%. That means the composite score in this two disability will be 55%. Let's take one more example. Let's assess three disabilities. The same example will be taken. Now the same person goes into severe depression. That means you also have mental disability. Earlier, the hearing disability is 40%, visual disability is 30%, and mental disability is 25%. Since it is 25% and above, it will be considered for calculation of composite total disability score. Now, we will be placing all A, B, C, hearing, visual, and mental disability in a descending order. That is, A is equal to 40, B is equal to 30, and C is equal to 25. Now we will consider the first two, and they will name them as A and B. And we will use the same formula. X is equal to A plus B into 100 minus A divided by 100. As we have calculated earlier, that is 40 and 30, the same formula will be utilized. And finally, we will come to this number 15, that is 55%. For hearing and visual, the disability is 55%. Now, there is one more which needs to be assessed. That is mental disability, which is 25%. Now, A will be 55%. That is the total composite. And we will consider 25 as the B. So 55 plus 25 into 90 minus 55 divided by 100. And finally, if you calculate, it will be 8.75. The total composite score will be 63.75%, and you will be rounding it off to 64%. This is how the multiple disabilities will be calculated by using the formula. If we critique this multiple disability formula, they have mentioned this multiple disability in the page number 524. They are clearly demonstrated it. And compared to previous one, they have increased the denominator to 100. Unfortunately, they have considered only 7 domains of multiple disability. That means the combination of these 7 domains will be considered for multiple disability. Unfortunately, there is some amount of discrepancies between the multiple disability definition of the Act and the Gazette notification. Hence, the clarity may be given. Further, the clarity regarding the range of disability, especially mental illness, with regard to autism, there is no specific score. In such a scenario, the median number will be considered. Unfortunately, the negative aspects have to be brought in here. The discrepancies between the definition of multiple disability with regard to Act and the Gazette notification. Invariably, the Act prevails over the Gazette notification. Somebody has to challenge it in the court of law because the multiple disability does not mean only 7 domains. Hence, there are 21 disabilities which are notified, which needs to be considered. Further, amendment may be required. Further, the Standing Medical Board, which is a special medical board consisting of all specialities to be brought in for this Standing Medical Board, can be difficult in many places. To conclude, my dear friends, this Gazette notification gives clarity with regard to multiple disability assessment, and it clearly says any disability more than 25 and 25 above will be utilized for multiple disability assessment to calculate the total composite score. With regard to range of disability score given in mental illness, autism spectrum disorder, the median number will be considered for the scoring. Unfortunately, this Gazette notification talks about only 7 disabilities domains, but the RPWD Act talks about 21 different disabilities. That means combination of all these 21 can be used for multiple disability scoring. But this Gazette notification talks about 7 only. Finally, this is the formula which is used to calculate multiple disability. X is the composite score, A is the highest disability score, B is the lowest, A plus B into 100 minus A divided by 100 is the formula which we are going to use for multiple disabilities assessment. Thank you very much for giving your valuable time. Stay safe.